Okay, well, let's go ahead and begin. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our second annual Launchpad Summit. This is part one of From Accidental Admin to Innovative Operator. In this session, we'll learn how to successfully implement the Salesforce integration. We're going to get tips and best practices to drive user adoption and deliver significant business impact. We're going to explore the framework needed to build effective Salesforce sync while avoiding common pitfalls. So lots of great content coming your way. Before we jump into it, I do want to give our last final reminder and kind of let you all know that, hey, you are all automatically entered into a chance to win a professional services package valued at $600, and that's just for attending today. So we're going to be announcing the winner next week. I will be sending out an email. So know that if you're here, you are in the runs for that. So pay attention to your email. We'll be reaching out to you. So good luck to everyone with that. Okay, so we have our agenda today. And on our flight's agenda, our captain is going to be providing an overview of the Salesforce integration by highlighting some of the most popular features, including the soft phone, viewing activities in the logs and their associated Salesforce records, reviewing preset requirements, and discussing the best practices for building Salesforce triggers. So with that, let's meet our crew. So captaining today's flight, we have Mary King. Welcome.
Thanks,
She's going to be our expert today. And then my name is Jess Michaels, and I'm going to be our moderator. So a little bit about Mary. Mary is a 3 times Salesforce certified revenue operations leader with over 10 years experience. She is a Salesforce customer experience ambassador. She's a Trailhead Ranger and a Rad Woman grad. Oh, and did we mention she's a longtime CTMer? This has been kind of fun. We've been dropping her numbers throughout the presentations. I'm employee number 5. Bob, who presented yesterday, is 4. Mary is employee number 2. So with that, I'm going to put some of her connections into the chat for you guys so that everyone can connect with her on LinkedIn as well as her Trailblazer site. So that is in the chat for everyone. So before we get started, I wanted to give a big thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules to attend today's sessions. We know that you are busy and priorities are always shifting, and there's always an unexpected fire. So thank you all so much for being here today. So with our tips, follow along by watching. We're going to give you some handouts and a link, and then ask questions. So we have the Q&A box, we have the chat box. If you have a question in the moment, enter them in, and then we'll address them at the end. But we definitely want to be able to address your questions. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mary.
Thanks, Jess. Let's get started. CallTrackingMetrics can integrate with your Salesforce account so that calls coming through your tracking numbers appear automatically as leads, contacts, activities, or other objects in Salesforce. This is a powerful way to ensure that all of your advertising and agent performance data feeds right into your org so that your team can see which campaigns are driving calls and resulting in sales, giving you full visibility and actionable data to maximize your ROI. Let's take a look. CTM soft phone. One of the most beneficial tools in our integration is our soft phone. The CallTrackingMetrics soft phone can be integrated with your org via the OpenCTI adapter. Just a quick note for our friends attending today that might not be familiar with these terms. A soft phone or software telephone is a program that enables voice over internet protocol telephone calls from computing devices. In other words, it turns your computer into a phone, and so all you need is an internet connection and a headset with a microphone. CTI, or computer telephony integration, is a JavaScript API that lets developers or partners to build cloud-based call systems within Salesforce. Now, these sound like really big words and tough things, but to install this, it's as simple as downloading a file from your CTM account and uploading it within Salesforce. You'll need to assign users and then add it to your utility bar. And we have all of the instructions for you included in a handout, which I believe we're going to either share through chat or after the session. So once you've installed this, your agents can utilize all the capabilities of the fully integrated CTM soft phone within the Salesforce platform, such as receiving and making phone calls, SMS messages, taking chats, viewing call scripts, dropping pre-recorded voicemails, and so much more. If you have not attended our Launchpad Academy with the lovely Jess Michaels, I would highly encourage you to do so, in particular day 3. Level up your account where you'll learn all the productivity tools accessible within the soft phone. One of the benefits in using our integration with Salesforce is that CTM can pop existing lead, contact, or account records as calls come in. Let's take a look at our records. So whenever a customer calls, we will pop the matching record and all of their information will appear front and center for your agents. So no more time spent searching and scrolling, clicking for information about a customer. Everything you need will be on screen with each call, allowing your agents to quickly get a picture of who they're speaking with and provide a more personalized service. If there isn't an existing record, then CTM can create, update, or upsert almost any object, standard or custom, that's in your org. And we do this by providing an interface to create Salesforce object field maps using the fields and data from CTM's activity log. So let's take a look at the activity log. In addition to installing the soft phone within Salesforce, you can embed our activity log by using a small snippet of code we provide and creating a Visualforce page. And we also have the instructions for you for you in our knowledge base and also in the handout that we're going to share. This allows your agents to view all activities routed to them, add additional notes, score calls, email from within the log, access custom actions, view previous interactions, and any other pertinent details that are needed at critical moments. And as a call manager or any higher level role, you can see all of your agents' activity. So you can use tools like Live Listen and Barge and provide in the moment coaching, or you can even review call recordings to monitor performance. So that's like a quick high level overview of what the integration looks like within Salesforce. So up next, I want to talk about some considerations. Being on the sales side of CTM, I frequently hear prospects coming to us with the need to implement call tracking and their integration with Salesforce yesterday. And that can lead to a rocky implementation. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about just the pre-setup considerations that you'll need to think about. As I mentioned a moment ago, we do have a requirement gathering worksheet for you, and it's going to go into much more detail than what we have here. But at a minimum, these are the questions that you should be able to answer before integrating with Salesforce. The first would be, who will own the integration between CTM and Salesforce? If there's any one piece of advice that I could pass on to all of our customers, it's that much like Salesforce, CTM is a complex, living, breathing, ever-changing, and evolving platform. So you really, really need someone to own CTM and the integration with Salesforce. You can't just like set it and forget it. You also need to think about who your stakeholders are and involve them in the process. Also think about what objects you'll work with. This is important because you need to know which types of records that we should present to your agents. Also think about how they're going to make phone calls, because this will affect the creation of your records. Think about if your agents are going to update records within CTM or Salesforce. I think it's best to have your agents working in a single system and having a consistent workflow, because ultimately this is going to help you with troubleshooting. Also consider your go live date. We hope it's not today. Our professional services team is here to help, but they're also in really high demand. So if you plan to engage with our team on an implementation, plan ahead. Lastly, think about how you're going to test. It's important to note that at this time, CTM doesn't provide a sandbox where you can push changes into a production environment. So what we offer instead is the ability to use a sub account of your agency for a testing environment, but then you'll need to replicate this in your production CTM account. The next thing to note is that CTM has two options for integrating with Salesforce. We have what we call our legacy integration. It was the original integration. It's what I like to call our one-size-fits-all approach for sending data to Salesforce. There's implicit actions that we take, and it has worked well for many of our customers. However, what we learned over time is that both our customers and CTM need additional controls on the data sync. So that's where our triggers come into play. Triggers allow maximum flexibility, providing you control over what data is sent, when, and how you need it. This allows you to design better solutions to match your agent workflow and also work with additional objects that aren't accessible via the legacy integration. You're the first to hear it here. We must note that we've decided to sunset our legacy integration because triggers are a much better solution for our customers. And they're also where we're investing all of our Salesforce resources. So while there isn't an official sunset date yet, I would think about this much like the switch from classic to lightning. Just know that it's going to come at some point. So we're advising all of our new customers to get set up with triggers. So let's get started with triggers. What exactly are they? Triggers are a tool that allows you to easily automate if-then business processes through workflows consisting of rules and actions. So let's take a look at what makes a trigger. There's three components to a trigger. You have the trigger itself, which is identifying when the process should run. You have rules, which decides whether or not to execute the actions. And then you have the actions, which is what the trigger does when the rules are met. You'll also see the term workflow in our documentation and on the trigger setup page. A workflow consists of rules and actions. So let's dig in a little bit deeper. We have the trigger. So the trigger identifies when the process should run. And we offer like two types of triggers for your automation needs. We have our triggers that are activity-based. This is going to be things like a call started, a form's received, an agent is making a manual update, the call ends, and so on. And then we also have invocable triggers, which is going to be dependent on another trigger or a voice menu. Within the trigger, you can also decide if you want to run this for all of your tracking numbers or just a handful. Let's look at the next component, which is rules. Rules determine whether or not to execute actions. So in each set of rules, you can apply filters to include or exclude activities. These filters can be based on almost any type of data in the activity log, such as call direction, call status, agent, your tracking source, and so on. When your rules are met, CTM will execute the actions in your workflow. And you can add as many rules as you want to each trigger or none at all. If there aren't any rules, then the trigger will just automatically execute the actions. If your activity doesn't meet the criteria, then the trigger will skip those actions in the workflow and move on to the next set of rules and evaluate those. This is a lot like Salesforce's process builder. And then one thing I wanted to call attention to is linked versus found. This is something that you'll notice within rules. We have the option to add Salesforce record is linked or Salesforce record is found. This is important to add to your rules because if you don't, we're going to create duplicate records because we're not checking for an existing matching record. So how does CTM find matching records? We're searching for any fields with the data type phone on the objects that you specify for a matching number. If we can't, using similar methodology, we will look for a matching email address in any email field based on the email address of the call record, if there is one. So what is linked and found? The difference? This is like a hot question at CTM. Linked means this particular call, not caller, is linked between CTM and Salesforce, and found, this means this particular caller is in Salesforce and CTM has found them based on the phone number or email address. It's crucial to understand the difference between the two. If you're using trigger at the start of a call, linked will not work. A record first must be found or newly created by CTM in order to be linked. Actions. This is telling the trigger what to do and how to do it. So when the rules or criteria are met on an activity, the trigger will execute the associated actions. You can either execute actions immediately or add a delay. And if you choose to add a delay, you can execute the actions at a specific point in time, such as 1 hour after the call is completed, 15 minutes after the form reactor is received, or you can even add a custom field to execute the actions on a specific date. So we've got a pro tip for you. When building triggers, I think about these like how we would think about Salesforce's process builder. It's a point and click tool that allows us to easily automate if-then processes. So we're only going to do what you tell us to do, when you tell us, exactly how you tell us, and nothing else. All right, so presets. There's a lot to consider when you're building triggers for Salesforce, and we're going to jump into that in the second session. Finding and capturing the right information when you need it and how you need it. So to help you get started with triggers, our fabulous support team has built trigger presets for Salesforce based on some of the most common workflows that they see. Using standard objects only, they have the logic configured for finding and updating lead, contact, account, and opportunity records while appending calls and text messages as a task. We call this a great foundation because chances are you will need to further customize or add additional triggers to your account based on your business's needs. And this is something that we're going to talk more about in our part 2 session as well. So now that you have the basics, we're going to take a pause here and see if there's any questions, and then we'll take a quick break after that before jumping into part 2.
All right, let me see if we have some questions. All right, well, I don't see any questions coming in. So maybe this is a good time to take a break, and then we'll come back for part 2 where we'll continue the conversation.